introduce her. She is amazing. She is a first-generation American, originally from Ecuador, with a strong background in hospital administration and real estate. She's making history as the first Ecuadorian woman to join a governor's cabinet in Nevada. We want applauses in the chat too. We want the hearts and applauses. Iris was recently appointed by Governor Joe Lombardo to serve as the director of the Governor's Office for New Americans. And in this role, she is committed to providing support and resources to the newest citizens of Nevada, helping them to navigate their way towards success and integration into American society. Iris, as mentioned, is a realtor in Las Vegas, and she has recently been honored with the prestigious Top 40 Under 40 Award, which is a testament to her exceptional skills in making sure people have a wonderful place to call Las Vegas home. She also serves as the Clark County Commission, she was appointed by the Clark County Commission to serve as a board member for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Citizen Review Board, where she advocates for fairness and accountability. A true believer in the American dream, her journey and achievements demonstrate that with hard work, determination, and resilience, one can overcome challenges and create a fulfilling and prosperous life. Ladies and gentlemen, our welcome, Iris Jones.
Thank you so much. I am Iris Ramos Jones, Director of Governor's Office for New Americans. I'm a first-generation immigrant, originally from Ecuador, who came to this country 10 years ago. Back home, I worked in the administration of the largest hospital in my country. I was making a name for myself at a very young age. I was being very successful. One day things changed and I have to come with my family to the United States, leaving everything behind. My family, my friends, my food, my career, and even losing my identity. Back home, my name is Iris. Here, everybody calls me Iris. Without being able to communicate in English and not knowing anybody in this country, I started my journey in rural West Virginia. Yes, wow, that was a challenge. I never met a person in West Virginia that looked like me. Since I couldn't communicate in English, I avoid people at all costs. I became an expert on self-checkouts. I did not want to talk to the cashiers, but recognizing then I needed to speak to people, I enrolled myself in the community college. The closest one was an hour away from home. And I used to drive every day an hour to get to the community college, to get my English classes. How bad do you want it? When I came to Las Vegas, a city that I absolutely love, because to me, Las Vegas is the answer from God after all of those prayers. I worked in a tourist company where I earned the best salesperson award every month that I worked there. Did I know about sales? I had no clue about sales. But one day I found a trick. People that were in Europe 8 hours ahead of us were buying online while we were sleeping. So I asked my boss for authorization to log into the system, and there I was, selling tours left and right at midnight from home. How bad do you want it? I went through a very challenging divorce. I ended losing every singular personal possession that I had, but I gained my freedom. For a few months, my daughter and I were sleeping on the floor, but I gained my peace. Having grown up in a very conservative family, divorce wasn't really part of our vocabulary. However, by freeing myself from a very abused relationship, I also gained a lesson for my daughter. Don't ever settle for less than you deserve. Looking for a career and not just for a job, one day I decided to start in the real estate business. Very bold of me, especially because I didn't know anybody here. But in the real estate business, the majority of big names are actually men. I have had several deals with agents and even with some clients that didn't take me seriously at first. But I was always thinking, is it probably because of my broken English? I was afraid of talking. I was afraid of being in front of people. And those are not great fears to have when you need to talk to people in order to make a deal. I understood then that in order for me to become the agent that I wanted to be, I needed guidance. I needed a coach, and so I found him. I often used to tell my coach and to my amazing husband, I promise you that I am very smart in Spanish. Recognizing my weakness was probably one of the hardest exercises that I did with my coach. Coming from being a very successful person back home to recognizing that here I was just like a little baby, then I started learning the language. It was very tough. But by recognizing that, I also found out what I needed to work on. I could have just waited for a miracle to happen, or what I did, I found a way to sharpen my skills and turning those weaknesses into strengths and opportunities. About 4 years ago, writing my business plan with my coach, I set up a goal of making 6 figures. He drew them up, wrote for me, and I did it. The following year, when he asked me, what do you want to do for next year? I say, I want to make more money than my white gringo husband, even if it was by $1. And I did it. I worked super hard. I did track the deals, set up the goals, and I got it done. I have to work nights, always in the weekend, but how bad do you want it? I didn't know anything about real estate, and I knew where I wanted to take my career to. I invested in myself, I hired a coach, I had a mentor, I read books not only about real estate, but also about people. I put myself out there and started getting involved with the community and attended to many conferences and networking groups. And then I saw my team leader who have won many awards one day, and he told me about this 40 under 40. So I said, I also want to get it. And the first year I tried, didn't get it. Then I got the feedback. And the second time I tried, I made the changes and I got it. Out of thousands of agents in the Valley, I was finally a top 40. I had a very bad experience with the police, so I decided to get involved with the Citizen Review Board, where I advocate for fairness and accountability. But by putting myself, thank you, I'm trying to be quiet, I promise. But by putting myself out there and working with the community, I had the great opportunity to meet who is now the governor of the great state of Nevada. Although working with the governor wasn't necessarily on my business plan, it is one of the most amazing blessings that I have received. I still remember going on my knees when I finally understood why, after 10 years of huge challenges, I could understand why I went through that. My sacrifices and pain are now what moved me to help others like myself. I remember walking into my first cabinet meeting. I couldn't believe it. My entire last 10 years of my life came to my mind, from sleeping on the floor to being told that I am a nobody in this country, from feeling hopeless to having police officers asking me about my status in a very mean way, from being broke to being broke. There I was at the same table with people that I have only seen in the news. A woman like me from a third world country to becoming a cabinet member of the governor of the great state of Nevada. Thank you, Governor Joe Lombardo, for believing in me. Back home, no matter how hard you work and how many degrees you have, you barely meet your needs. Here in America, we immigrants see this country with fresh eyes, with a lot of hope. We work hard for what we want. I have experienced nothing but kindness from the American people, and I am forever grateful for it. This is only possible in America. Life challenges don't define you, but help you sharpen onto you who you want to be. Your color of skin doesn't define you, but make you beautiful and unique. I don't deserve more than anybody else because I am Latina. I refuse to be a victim. I refuse to be boxed in a specific way. I refuse to be called a minority. I know, but it's not an uplifting word in Spanish. I refuse to allow other people to tell me what I deserve. In my experience, I have been paying and giving opportunities for my capacities, for my work ethic, and for how bad I really wanted to accomplish my American dream. And to that person who used to constantly tell me that I was a nobody in this country, I hope you're watching. Thank you.
How bad do you want it? Iris, thank you so much.
Right, exactly.
And we hope you are watching. And so with that, again, welcome.
Right,
And what a
yeah.
wonderful way to open up our panel discussion. Before we get going with our panel discussion, I'm going to do some intros of our wonderful panelists. And so again, Iris, thank you so much for your inspiring story about how far you've overcome and how you just worked really hard. So I think the takeaway is how bad do you want it? So without further ado, let's get going on with our forum. Will Rucker. Will Rucker, there he is, the one man on the panel. Amazing man. He is the Community Health Director for Intermountain Health. He is a faith leader, a nonprofit professional, a small business owner, and an ardent voice for equality. Will Rucker sees a real need to bring compassion to community consciousness. Throughout his professional career, Will has been recognized for his talent to communicate with clarity and empathy. You're in for a real treat with Will. He's been on several of our panels before too. I can agree with that. He's empowering, and he actually is that person who can forge coalitions amongst even the most unlikely collaborators. A nice way of saying he can get people on opposite sides of the aisle and the spectrum to come together and agree. Will is engaged in local, statewide, and national platforms, advancing socio-spiritual transformation efforts in restorative justice, health equity, and human first initiatives. He has nearly 20 years of experience in leading individuals, teams, and organizations to extraordinary successes. He informs also his unique approach to change, which he'll be informing today on the panel. Currently, Will leads the development and expansion of public health programs for a major national nonprofit organization. He is also a board member of several nonprofits, including the Interfaith Council of South Nevada, Community Partners for Better Health, Compassionate Las Vegas, and the Nevada Minority Health and Equity Coalition. Ladies and gentlemen, in person and online, please welcome Will Rucker. Senator Pat Spearman, or Dr. Pat, or my everything, whatever you want to call her. She is beloved in Nevada. She is the bill sponsor of the Equal Pay Bill, but Dr. Pat holds several accredited degrees. Not only is she a seasoned legislator and just an inspiration to us all, she also holds a Bachelor of Science in Political Science from the Norfolk State University, a Master of Divinity from the Seminary of Southwest, and a Doctor of Business Administration from Walden University. Her military education includes military police officer basic and advanced courses. Did you all hear me? Military. Okay. Equal Opportunity Management Institute, Military Public Affairs Officer, Food Advisor and Technical Supervisor course, Nuclear, Biological and Chemical Training course, Command and General Staff College. That's all of her training in military alone. She is an ordained minister, a former pastor, and serves on the Global Social Justice Ministry team of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. She is also a former part-time lecturer at the University of Louisville and a professor of military science at Kentucky State University. Pat served in the U.S. Army for more than 2 decades and retired as a lieutenant colonel. That deserves a clap.
Yes, it does.
And her final assignment was at the Pentagon as a member of the Army Operations Center for Worldwide Missions. In 2020, Dr. Spearman was awarded the Charles Dick Medal of Merit during the 142nd Annual General Conference of the National Guard Association of the United States. The award recognizes exemplary support from an elected official, legislators, and governors to acknowledge their exceptional contributions to the National Guard. The recipient's support must have a long-term positive effect on the members and mission of the National Guard. In October of 2020, Senator Pat Spearman received the Equality Leadership Award for her legislative work and unwavering commitment to leadership to our brothers and sisters of the LGBTQ plus community as an elected official in Nevada. That deserves a hand clap as well. Dr. Pat is also an active member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and Serenity Chapter, Order of the Eastern Star. She enjoys travel, learning about different cultures, music, and spending time with her family. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator Pat Spearman to the panel.
Senator Doctor. Senator Doctor. Pastor sister.
We're going to have fun. Wait till we get started with these questions. We also all know each other. Okay. So the next, oh gosh, not least, Poonam Mather. Okay, so Poonam was right there. Latoya, you're last, not least. I'm skipping ahead here. Poonam, my dear friend and thought leader. Poonam is the executive director of the Elaine P. Wynn and Family Foundation. Poonam is a prominent individual in Nevada. What a treat we have her joining us today. She is celebrated for her impactful contributions to education and community. She's on every board. She's helping every young child. She is a thought leader, and she's at the highest level of executive boardrooms, serving as an inspiring leader and advocate for positive change. Ladies and gentlemen, online and in person, Poonam Mather.
That's right.
Next, we have Commissioner to the Nevada Equal Rights Commission, Hanadi Nadeem. Hanadi is a public servant, much like her mother, and her motto in life is grounded in a duty to help Nevadans, especially our children. Mrs. Nadeem is an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. As the head of operations for a healthcare business, she leads with both compassion and dedication to assist all of her clients. She has a deep understanding of the need for a stronger and more equitable healthcare system for those that are underinsured or uninsured in Nevada. In addition to overseeing a thriving business, Mrs. Nadeem is very much involved in her community. She is the past president of the APPNA Alliance, an organization aimed at providing medical relief and support to women and children across the world. So needed now. Under her leadership, she has expanded the organization and its mission to local chapters across the United States. She is also the founder of Save God's Special Children, a nonprofit organization devoted to providing educational support to children with special needs. Save God's Special Children has been providing education to children for over 20 years. And in Hanadi's words, we must work together to make this world a better place. And we can do that with dedication. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Hanadi Nadeem. And last but not least, my soror. I know, Senator, you're an AKA, but there's some Deltas also on this panel too. Latoya Holman. Latoya is the Chief Development
We're all
Officer.
cousins. We're all
Yes.
cousins, right?
Yes, we are. We
There you
are.
go.
Yes, she's the Chief Development Officer of the Public Education Foundation and a dear beloved friend of mine. Latoya was born and raised in Sacramento, California, like myself, and she's the first in her family to attend college. Encouraged by her parents to pursue multiple talents, Latoya enjoys playing the piano, acoustic guitar, and singing. Are you going to sing for us today, Latoya?
You never know.
You never know. Her day-to-day life is spirited by the love and joy that she receives from just doing. And for her dog, Willa, who was adopted through the Animal Foundation. And also you can get pictures request of Willa, that's her child, on request. We can, anytime. Okay. Latoya is the Chief Development Officer of the Public Education Foundation, where she serves as an ambassador and principal fundraiser for the nonprofit which supports teachers, students, and families of the Clark County School District. She secures resources and does it quite well. There's not a person that Latoya doesn't know or hit up for money for causes she believes in, to support our students, our teachers, to reduce the amount of money that they spend on out of their own pockets for their own classrooms. She helps them. Latoya is the founding member of the Human Rights Campaign, also called HRC of Las Vegas. HRC is the largest LGBTQ+ civil rights organization in the country with more than 4 million members. LaToya has been serving on the board for HRC in numerous capacities for 16 years as an ally. She currently serves as the member of the National Board of Directors and is the member of the National Executive Committee for HRC, lending her voice as a proud African-American female ally, businesswoman, and advocate to the equality movement. LaToya was a member of the Cultivation Committee, which helped fundraise efforts. See, so LaToya can do it. LaToya can get the money for what is now the Robert L. Forbes LGBT Center. She has also delivered multiple keynote speeches at the HRC galas and corporate diversity programs, both locally and across the country. With a passion for civil rights, LaToya has worked with Project Real, a 501c3 nonprofit organization which encourages students to learn more about the importance of the law. She has led presentations and tours for more than 3,000 students, helping them identify career paths for themselves and develop self-respect for themselves, as well as respect for our justice system. For years, she has been a powerful advocate for arts and education in Southern Nevada by serving on the board of the Nevada School of Arts, also a nonprofit organization that provides world-class music instruction, and that's our songbird over there, and life-changing experiences to students of all ages and backgrounds. Ladies and gentlemen, please, and I did not get all of their bios read. These people have a wealth of information and knowledge, but please, again, welcome us, last but not least, LaToya Hillman. To the panel. Now we can get to the questions because that's what we're all here for. And Amy, as you check the questions online, please feel free to pipe in if we have questions online. So this is to all female panelists. Are you all ready to go?
Ready.
Okay, so this is to all female panelists. You'll get your follow-up question after. What obstacles, ladies, or challenges have you experienced in your professional careers that seem to be unique to women? How did you overcome those challenges? And what stands out to you about your respective roles, and how does one navigate as a woman or overcoming barriers or stereotypes associated with women in leadership? Anyone can take this.
Go for it.
So my entree, if you will, into male-dominated world was I was preaching when I was 6 years old, and people couldn't believe that it was me. Couldn't believe that I was reading. I could read the Bible. I could not read, see Dick run, see the dog chase him. I couldn't read that, not at all. That's a very male-dominated role. I graduated from there to the U.S. Army. And I was commissioned in the Military Police Corps, December of 1977. It was shortly after the WAC Corps, the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, had been disbanded, and they did not want women in the military to be mainstream. Really did not want women in the Military Police Corps, and really didn't want women, Black women in the Military Police Corps. And so one of the things that I faced was the challenge of the right to be in the room. And I always learned when I walk into a room, I don't care who's in it, I walk into a room, I am supposed to be there. And I had a gentleman to ask me one time, I walked in, it was about 4 years ago, came into a room and he said, "Oh my goodness." And he came over to me, he said, "You're making people uncomfortable here." I said, "Who?" He said, "Well, I'm uncomfortable because of who you are." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, so one of us needs to leave." I said, "Oh, I just sat down."
Anyone else want to take that question? And you all can just grab the mic off the podium too.
Sure. I think we all are products of our, experiences and our upbringing. And one of the many experiences of my life is that I am a child that was raised in an environment of addiction. And one of the things that I picked up is that it was very, very easy for me to smile behind and show one thing, but actually be feeling something and experiencing something completely different. And I really developed that skill. I'm really good at it. So what I learned is over the years, that skill that I had developed as a younger person, although I thought I sharpened it, there were little cracks in that kind of shell that I built around myself. And those cracks were actually started by women. They kind of started picking at that shell that I built up. And although those cracks were starting to kind of open, I still tended to hide behind other people. I lost my voice in many spaces. And one of the biggest challenges in my career has been to do exactly what I'm doing now, which is speak truth to power, speak from personal experience, because that's what we all know, right? And to make sure that it's other people understand that it is perfectly okay to speak that truth, even when it's not pretty, even when it's not clean, because we all can learn from each other. And so I think one of my obstacles in leadership in my professional experience has been to hide behind men, to do the work behind the scenes and for others to take credit for it. And I am no longer willing to do that.
I wish I could see the chat right now. And then Hanani or Poonam, do you want to add to that?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. So more than that, and in the career life, throughout my career life, I also want to add that there is something that in the beginning of my life, as my childhood, I always wanted to be a philanthropist, and I also wanted to be in the sports. That was my passion. So back home, I'm a Pakistani American. So back home in Pakistan, one day I asked my mom, I was like, you know what? I want to learn horse riding. That is my passion. Whenever I saw the horses, they look so beautiful to me, so magnificent, so majestic. And I was like, this is something I really want to do. And I still remember my mother she's a physician back home, and she was like, what? You know, that was kind of a thing that at that time it was hard for them in Pakistan to think that a woman would be learning horse riding or in sports. But now I'm glad that it's no more over there. And I really want to work on it, that the sports, how important the physical fitness, the sports is for women as well as for men.
We do know that physical sports and team playing does help women in leadership roles and gives them kind of confidence. What do you say, Poonam? What challenges have you had? Talk to us.
I am an Indian American, and it is hard to ride a horse in a sari. So yeah, good for you. Iris, let me just say, like, you be a badass. That was an amazing story. And thank you for who you are and how you own it. And I think I thought you sort of sent us some of these questions, so it's been fun to just savor at red lights and stuff these questions. And I think that challenges, what have been the challenges that I've experienced? I can point to the externalities. I can see the faces that represented a barrier. I can vividly recall those who conveyed in an instant that they didn't believe in me. I can absolutely replay moments in meetings where I felt like I hadn't been heard. However, the theme, and I'm like third act, right? So I've got the benefit of more in the rearview mirror than I've ever had before. And that gives me the benefit of perspective. And I think ultimately for me, the challenge that has been the most consistent challenge throughout my professional career is the one that LaToya points to, which is I've met the enemy and the enemy is me. And I can give you a couple of examples. I remember in my mid-20s, I was hired at the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce. And there were a bunch of really old, awesome white guys that were running the place. And I was in my 20-somethings. And so we had like nothing in common. And yet they believed in me for some reason. Don't know why, but they gave me opportunity, rapid promotion, big acceleration, weekly television show. It was like sort of all bigger than I was. It happened so quickly that my internal tape was about, oh, imposter, imposter, imposter. If they only knew, if they only knew, if they only knew. That was kryptonite that I created, that I ingested. It isn't their fault. It was me. However, there was one of those enlightened white guys who once made a passing comment to my enlightened white guy boss that something about what I wore. And my boss, in a passing comment in a meeting on a bunch of other topics, made a passing reference to this guy's observation about my clothing choices. I like color. I didn't grow up in a corporate anything, so I didn't know what that meant, except I ruminated with that comment for a decade.
Mm.
I literally, for 12 years, I wore nothing but blue, gray, and black. And it was about homogenizing to fit in. In retrospect, I look back at that and it wasn't what he did. I've met the enemy and it's me. And that was in my mid-20s. Now at 63,
And looking really good at 63
well,
in your colorful outfit today.
Exactly.
I wanted to just leave enough time for all of you to process the whole full thought, dang, she looks good. But at 63, I am no longer apt to do that to myself, right? It's about permission. The one other thing that just as a personal story is I left the chamber because I knew I needed to be a mother. The job had become a way of life and I needed to reclaim the dimensions of my life. And to do that, I needed to quit. So I quit. It made the paper. I got phone calls. Elaine Wynn was one of the people that called. And so that began several months of conversation. I knew at some point I would follow them anywhere. And so the final meeting where I knew there was going to be an offer letter at the end, I knew it was coming. I knew it was also incumbent upon me to clarify my value proposition. If what you want is a workaholic that you've just witnessed, that is not what I want to do in this chapter. And so I practiced to perfection in my mirror the soliloquy that was going to address that. And when the moment was right in our conversation, I hit play and I delivered masterfully the soliloquy. The woman looked at me and said, "What'd you say?" I didn't see that one coming. I thought it was, well, I was so good so without having an option, I simply spit out, I just need to be a mom. Probably not in the corporate book of what you should be doing in a meeting. Yet, without any hesitation, she said 5 words to me that changed my life. You just became more desirable. So as permission, I didn't know that I needed such clear permission, but I did. And that in my mid-30s became the first massive permission to stop being an apologist, to stop trying to be one of, because that diminished my uniqueness. And now at 63, I spend any opportunity I can find to grant permission to women, to men that don't believe they can do it. It's unique, it's the human experience. And so the challenges, I think, have been real in terms of the externalities, but the biggest challenges that I've ever faced are the ones that I've erected, honored, and submit myself to.
That's so powerful. Wow. Yeah, we should clap for that. And I wish I could see what's going on with the online chat, but Will,
Sure.
as a,
We do have one comment in
Oh,
the chat.
we
um,
do. Okay.
From Kanisha. She wants to pause there and say, facing the enemy in yourself. The gratitude, has a lot of gratitude for all of your vulnerability here on the panel. And she can identify with the growth in that vulnerability. So just wanted to take a moment to share that with you.
Thank you, my co-moderator, Amy Nigro with the EEOC, manning the online Zoom. So you're
But we-
resonating with a lot of women right now. Thank you, Kanisha, for your comment too.
Yes, and we actually do have a first question here, and this is for any of the panelists. We talk a little bit about your history and where you are today, but was there a turning point in your life or career that made you want to be a champion or advocate for women's rights in the workplace?
I think that's great because I'm going to tie that in to my question to Will Rucker, our token male guy on the panel. Will, so you heard that question online, but it's basically what I was getting ready to ask you, which is, it is so important that men support women in the workplace. And Will, you've been an ally for women in healthcare and in leadership. And so what does it mean to you to be supportive? And how do you think other males can support women in the workplace? What parallels do you see in your own challenges as being a Black man in corporate America?
Thank you for the question and for putting me after Poonam. The direct answer, the 5-word answer is I didn't have a choice. When I think of the word ally, I think of mutual benefit. And I can think of nothing more beneficial than uplifting women. Women literally carry life What's better than that?
Amen, bro.
So when you think of being an ally in that space, the turning point, again, I didn't have a choice, but when I really recognized my privilege as a male, person presenting as male, person that is generally more masculine in nature, was when being male was no longer desirable. And it was a situation actually with the church event. I guess I should say I'm also a gay male. And I had a situation where I was speaking up for another pastor who had placed his arm around a female parishioner who, and it was taken as a sexual advance. And I said, it wasn't meant that way. Like, I know this guy. That's not at all what happened. She's a small girl. Like, his arm just happened to land on the side boob. Like, it was an accident. And I got ate up. Why? Because for others that had experienced that, it wasn't just an accident. And in that moment, I said, my experience is not the same as my female counterparts. And in that, I knew I had to expand my paradigm, expand my outlook, expand my experience. And then I'll put it through the lens of race. So I was born Black, and I've been Black since that day.
Do you have to stay that way?
And apparently, I think it's gonna
I
stick.
think we're just kind of, it's just,
We do.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna stick. And I find myself in a lot of all white spaces. And so in those spaces, I'm othered because I am different. But those spaces have taught me, and not in full, not completely, but just in part, how women feel in all male spaces. And in order to be a good ally, there's a song that comes to mind. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Sometimes being a good ally is speaking up and saying, no, her point is valid. Let's talk about that. And sometimes it's sitting there in silence and recognizing that women can take care of themselves too. And I don't have to be the savior simply because of my gender. And so it's an interesting and delicate balance, a dance, if you will, between coming to support, coming to empower, allowing the space to be what it is, and then also recognizing my insufficiency as a male. And the last thing I'll share is in this journey, what I have come to see, to kind of talk about the enemy is me piece, is at the end of the day, we all project into the world what's happening inside of us. And so often microaggressions or oversights actually aren't. And so we have to give grace and compassion to each other in order to journey together. So the quote that comes to mind is Tina Turner: "We don't need another hero, but love and compassion, their day is coming."
Thank you so much, Will. We can clap, we can clap. So Senator Spearman, tell us why equal pay matters to women in 2024. We're going to go into policy now.
Thank you. Several years ago, I was coming out of the grocery store and a lady approached me. She said, are you Senator, I can't read it, Pat? I said, yeah, that's me. And we got to talking and she told me a story about how she worked at a job and there was someone else that was hired after she was, and she was told to train them. She trained him and he moved up. She stayed where she was. And they met coming out of a store or something like that, and they started talking. He said, well, you ought to come over to the house and we'll throw some steaks on the grill and, we're talking. She said, okay. She said, where do you live? And he told her, and she said, how could you retire and live there? And he looked at her and said, well, I mean, we made whatever it was. And she said, what? She said, I didn't make that. He said, well, I don't know why. I mean, And so she said to me, she said, he's living in a very affluent area of Clark County. And I have a 2-bedroom apartment in another part of town. So when we talk about equal pay and its importance, it's not just the pay that we miss, but it's everything else that goes along with it, because that's why more women retire in poverty. And so the equal pay bill, if I can, the equal pay bill recognizes that it's not just the straight out pay, but it's the pay that you would have been paid for your vacation. The vacation days that you traded in. It is the pay that you would have given your FICA. What happens in Social Security is the pay for, excuse me, for your 401k. All of those things have to be taken in consideration. So the equal pay bill that we got through in 2019 recognizes that you need all of those to be made whole. It also recognized that there are some unscrupulous characters that will try to wait the person who brings the charge against them, try to wait them out. And so the other thing that I put in the bill was there's no waiting out, because every time somebody in that company gets a paycheck, the clock starts again. And at the end of the day, if NERC decides based upon evidence that the person has indeed been wronged, and they give them a certificate to file in civil court, whatever that amount is multiplied by the highest interest rate in the state. It also has progressive penalties, because if the first time you do it, I think it's like 5,000. If you do it again within 5 years, it's 10,000. And then another, within another 5 years, it's 15,000. So we wanted to make sure that we made a statement. And I had so many people come to me and say to me, this is going to really hurt small business. I said, I don't think so, because small businesses understand, the power of people who want to work, who are good at working, and they're not going to invest a lot of time. What we're talking about are people who have, hundreds of people, and they decide based upon gender that this is what the pay will be. And so I think that Nevada is probably among a few states that has a very strong Equal Pay Act. And I would just invite anyone who thinks that you've been wrong, check it out, because chances are you have.
And you may file with the Nevada Equal Rights Commission or the EEOC, who is sponsoring this event. Thank you, Senator Spearman. Poonam, to you. Talking about the wage gap, but also more so your corporate background and how those nice white guys gave you a shot. How have you been able to achieve at the corporate level success in rooms with predominantly male executives? And you touched on that because of the generosity of people who believed in you. So what advice would you give to other women, which I believe you did, is, make sure you believe in yourself, but I'm going to ask again, what advice would you give to other women with aspirations such as yours to be change makers and glass ceiling breakers, but still be moms and still have other attributes of what it is to be a woman? What advice would you give to the young women who are watching, and all the seasoned women too?
Thank you for that 75-cent question. I got like a nickel answer for you. So can I just come back to the question that was posed in the chat?
Yes, please.
Because that made me wonder, what I heard was there a moment that sort of triggered?
Please go there. Yes.
Yeah, and so I got triggered, and so I'm going to share it. When sort of being an ally mattered differently, and here's what it was: is I am a foster parent now, adoptive parent, 4 times over, and so I've met Destiny has been the gifter of my family, and so in the order in which I met them, I met a 2.5-week-old light complected Black boy, Joseph, now 26, 27. I don't even know how old they are. They're all old. The next day, I took in a 9-year-old, Richard, who is now 34, blonde, blue-eyed, sometimes green-eyed, depends on what he wears. A year later, I met my gorgeous African-American daughter, who is now 24. And years later, I met a 6'4", strappingly good-looking white brunette kid named Devin. So those are my 4. So part of what was true is parallel to my corporate journey was the parenting journey. They happened because I left the chamber to be a mom, and then I became a mom, right? So the lessons and the experiences at that kitchen table were absolutely life altering. They made me a different human.
When you talk about kitchen table, Poonam, what do you mean?
I mean, I'm looking at my motley crew around my kitchen table, thinking that I am super open-minded and really understanding with a ton of humility how little I know. What the experience is for my Black baby girl versus my Black son versus my blonde, blue-eyed son. It is different every minute of every day. And what was fascinating is that my white son, the blonde, blue-eyed one, I met him at 9. He had spent the longest amount of time in unconscionable abuse and neglect. So the white guy of privilege that was the way the world approached him was, in his case, of all of my children, the furthest from the truth. He carried more pain, more devastation, more history of awful things. So it really humbled me, right? To be differently curious, to sort of shed any thought I had that I knew you based on anything I could conclude about you without being curious. So that was for me the sort of catalytic, get curious, not judgy thing. That was coincident with what it was happening in the corporate. That was when I was working the corporate thing.
Do
So
you think, Poonam, you manifested that, or you think it was just a random act of coincidence?
I just
or-
think God's got mad skills and a delicious sense of humor.
There he
So I
does.
don't
There
really
you go.
get how she does it, but I get that she does it. So what was also happening is because of that high stakes learning at my kitchen table and the implications it had for me as a human being, relationships mattered differently. Curiosity became the operating principle, and that extended into all corporate things. And so I was the only woman, I was the only one of color, but I didn't care because that was also my team, right? The 12 senior leaders at MGM Resorts were my team. And so what mattered more is let me get to know you. And I took the time to invest in creating relationship, not superficial relationship, not balance sheet relationship, not solve the corporate problem of the day relationship, but the what do you love the most in the world? What are you excited about in your life right now? What terrifies you? Because those are the things that if I know that about you and I have an opportunity to share that about me, we're connected at an entirely different level. And so I think there were a couple of them that when I met them treated, I mean, this what I used to say to them is I felt treated occasionally like a cat toy. Like I'd walk in the room, they'd be like, "Let beat you around and see if you come back up." But I was a weeble, right? I always came back up. Like, I'm glad. Was that fun for you? How much longer you want to do that game? Because I'd actually like to get to know you. But it allowed me to have those kinds of relationships that served me incredibly well. And especially at the executive level, we negotiate generally. It's not a here's the pay scale for the executive level. You negotiate what you're going to get at the executive level. What I didn't know was how to ask for what my needs were because I was so darn grateful that you were going to give me a shot that I'd be like, just thank you. And then over time, I realized that I was like really far behind because it's publicly reported info, right? In the corporation, I was like, dang, I don't think I'm that much less valuable than those other white guys, right? But what it occurred to me again, I've met the enemy is me. If I'm not asking, why would I expect it to happen? But what my internal thing was, I wasn't brave enough to ask. So I would just expect you to figure it out. And when you didn't, I would be hurt and then I would be resentful. All of that was a toxin internally that didn't change a thing on the outside, right? So I had a mentor of mine once who said, let me know how that's working for you. And if you want to keep doing it, but if you're open to something else, you've got to start to express it. Now, I didn't have the hunter-gatherer negotiation skills. No one had taught me those. I'm a girl, right? But to be able to say, thank you for the promotion, thank you for the faith in me, thank you for the additional responsibilities. I am going to town for you. And I just want you to know I have expectations now. That one phrase, thank you, and I have expectations now. Somehow I could get that out because it didn't feel bludgeoning. It didn't feel combative, right? And it wasn't then mine to own what they did. It was mine to make clear what my expectations were. And I gotta tell you, when that phrase came out of my mouth, my pay went up dramatically with every promotion. Not because I was any better at negotiating. I'm still not. I still want you to be happy, right? And I'm gonna give in for the greater good. But what it did do is to change the dynamics. And I think when you command some more respect, you receive it.
I think that's great. I think you should write that in the chat, Amy. And so that for all the people that are viewing, it's you speak up and you create boundaries. And what was it one more time, Poonam, so we can put it in the chat?
I don't know. I already said it. I'm over 60. I forgot.
Okay. Well, you have expectations now. Thank you, but I have
I have
expectations
Yeah,
now.
and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you
to
for the
promotion
opportunity for the
and let me
promotion
share my expectations.
and let me share my expectations. And I
All right,
really,
can I just say something real
Absolutely.
quickly?
Yes.
It's related to what Poonam just said. So there are a couple other things that I forgot in the bill. It used to be that you couldn't discuss your pay with coworkers. You can do that now. And the other thing that happened is, one of the things that happens that keeps women's pay lower is that when you apply for a job, they ask you, so how much is your last job? And so you can't do that anymore in Nevada.
yeah, we can clap for that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over to LaToya to talk about your career path.
Okay.
And so your resume is phenomenal and you are definitely a connector of
Thank you,
people.
working on it.
Oh, yeah. And so one of the things I want the viewers to know in person and online is just to tell us, and because you're so vulnerable, and I appreciate that, LaToya. We've had many conversations outside of this panel and you're just amazing. But I want you to feel comfortable telling us all the time you had to overcome adversity and make lemonade. I don't know if some of the people online know what I mean when I say lemonade, but when you've got lemons, you make lemonade. A little
lemonade,
sugar
yes.
in that and drink it, honey. So what worked? How did you make lemonade out of something that was challenging for you in your workplace or in your career path or in your growth, your personal, professional growth? And then one of the things I want you to also talk about is your ability to connect with people, because also we heard Poonam talk about, folks not speaking up or women not speaking up for what they're worth, but also it's a hard time. It's hard to network sometimes too, that same level of shyness and not knowing the language, like Edith had told us, and, just saying you have to be better. You have to, how bad do you want it? What are some of the things that you can encourage other people listening to speak up, not only for what you're worth, but also how to make connections, because networking is a very big part of success and you've mastered it.
Oh, thank you for that. So I think I'm just gonna stick with the, hiding my voice theme here, because it seems like it's resonating online, and I know it resonates with a lot of women in my immediate circle. I started at R&R Partners in the state, and was previously in human resources, but brought those skills to R&R and started learning about messaging and how important communication was. And so I took that information, and I had already started volunteering with the Human Rights Campaign. And from there, realized I had a passion for nonprofit. I wanted to help people, right? And so I moved over to the Las Vegas Metro Police Department Foundation, where I helped to run the foundation. And then from there, I met this woman named Sasha Larkin. And in that, I learned, I continued to learn and find a passion for sisterhood. And all the women at LVMPD who were working so hard to peacekeep in our community. And then from there, I moved into education, because I've always had a passion for our young people, for little LaToyas and little Poonams and little Wills, little Karens. And so that's how I ended up at the Public Education Foundation. All along that journey, however, still just never really speaking up the way that I know I could have. And so part of that journey was I was invited to a dinner. I went to this dinner to meet this very important person. Apparently, you can tell when people are important. It's like, is she okay? Did she have water? Is she okay? And so I'm like, who is this person? And she was just a very kind woman. And there was just a theme in my life that these women would just appear in my life at the craziest of times, the most difficult of times. And here's this woman, very kind, very important. And she immediately said, may I be vulnerable with you? And just the courage of doing that. And she said, may I tell you about my son, Matthew? And it was Judy Shepherd. And she proceeded, woman to woman, to ask me to tell me what happened to her child and how he was brutally murdered in Laramie, Wyoming. And she, in her vulnerability, said, "You seem to have such a voice." And it just clicked. And I was like, wait a minute, I do have that, right? And she said, "Will you please speak for my son? Because he's not here anymore. And I just find that you have
Victoria,
something."
Can you give a little background for our viewers who may not be familiar with?
Absolutely. So Matthew Shepard was an HIV positive gay male who lived in Laramie, Wyoming. He was a college student there, and he was kidnapped. He was tortured, bashed and tortured, and tied to a fence in out in the country in Laramie by wire. And he was left with deadly wounds and was found by a female police officer, sheriff. Got to remember to tell Sasha that connection. And she, during the, she found Matthew, did not have gloves. He was bleeding profusely. Despite that, despite knowing he was positive, she ripped the wire from his body, cutting herself, exposing herself, and got him to medical care. Matthew succumbed to those wounds and he passed away. But that incited a massive movement against, at that time, everyone said gay bashing, right? But she started, this powerful woman, a movement around hate crimes legislation. I worked for many years on that hate crimes legislation at her request to speak for Matthew. But it reminds me a lot about just not understanding the gift that I have, but there's just something about women. Man, we just know each other's potential before, like I know it in you before you do. And I'm going to be vulnerable and brave enough to tell you to do better. And I got you, right? And so that woman, and there was something that triggered me to say, yes, I will use my voice for Matthew, which I do now, right?
Yes, you do.
But I continue in my work in LGBTQ advocacy. But it started with Judy, and I continue to develop that skill. But I turned lemons into lemonade in partnership with our community and our communities across the country. We passed the Matthew Shepard Act, which is also hate crimes legislation. And we continue to protect that progress. Thank you, Senator, Sister, Dr. Pat. And we continue to do that together. But you asked also about connecting with people. And I just find that we just take it too seriously, right? How about we just are kind to people and we introduce ourselves because we really want to. And we find something that we have in common with someone. I call it allyship, Will called it allyship. You can actually network and connect with someone that you think you have absolutely nothing in common with. Because the odds are there's something there that we do the same, or what we know the same, or we felt the same. And let's just have a conversation about that. And so I find when I'm in a room, nervous, not nervous, whatever, I want to say hi to you. Is that okay? And also, can you tell me a little bit about you? Because I'd love to see what we might have in common and go from there. And what I found in this beautiful town is that what the majority of us have in common is that we want to help people. And we want people in our state to be okay, be stronger than okay, progress, do better, be safe, be, healthy and wealthy. We want all the good.
We want all the good and we want to be
all
seen.
this goodness
wanna
and we
be
want to
seen.
see each other. And so
Mhm.
I just find when you're in a space, if you're uncomfortable, if I don't know you, I just think you look beautiful in that orange. It's one of my favorite colors. And I want to talk to you about that. And can we maybe get to know each other a little bit? And I think the work stuff happens, but I think it's relationship before task.
Right. And I think that's what women do a little bit differently than men. If I can speak as the administrator for
We
the Equal Rights
really-
Commission,
Yeah.
we try to connect on something else different. And then we go into business. And so I want to talk more about policy. And this is to pretty much everybody. Actually, I'm going to go to Senator Spearman on this one as our policy expert and senior legislator here in Nevada. So we are, I don't know if you all know online, we're really proud in Nevada that we enforce the Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act. We were first to do it before EEOC. EEOC actually passed it, or not EEOC, they were a proponent of it and they enforce it, but the federal government actually last year passed their own Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act, which is great legislation that says if you're a woman and you're pregnant and you ask for an accommodation from your employer, you should get one within a reasonable amount of time and that you should not face discrimination on the job because you want to be a mom. So when we talk about that legislation and how we can also bring our women, our womanhood to the workplace. This is for you, Senator Spearman. How has that legislation helped some of your constituents? The Pregnancy Fairness Act specifically.
So believe it or not, there are still people that are getting pregnant.
No, happens every day.
Yeah, and are working. And let me just caveat this. Nevada in 2017, I carried the bill to revive the Equal Rights Amendment from the 1970s. We were the first state to do that in 45 years. And it ignited 2 other states to do it. So now we are at 38, the constitutional 38 states. In 2019, Nevada became the very first state to have a female majority legislature, which we
We
still
can clap for
have.
that.
And so one of the things that comes about when you have a lot of women at the table is we understand, you know, you mentioned the kitchen table, we understand what that feels like. And so the Pregnancy Fairness Act really says just because someone gets pregnant, you cannot fire them. And there are a lot of jobs that people can do, and that's what for people who have employees of 15 or more. There are a lot of jobs that you could do that will not be an encumbrance upon the employer. When we pass legislation like that, we also expect that there will be people who will be monitoring that. And if something is brought to their attention, like NERC, if it's brought to their attention, that they will handle that. And so for the people who say that they believe in life, it's important that if you believe in life, you believe in life outside the womb as well. And you ought to be helping people to have healthy babies. And so it is important. The other thing that I'll say, we in 2022, we passed, you all, the people passed an Equal Rights Amendment for the state of Nevada. And a lot of what we're talking about here comes under that rubric. You cannot be discriminated against, and you know, the race, color, religion, and all those sorts of things, but you cannot be discriminated based upon sex, based upon your sexual orientation or your identification. We have the most expansive Equal Rights Amendment in the country. Nevada has the most, and I have people calling me, asking me, how did you do it? Well, we did it by going to work and looking at the people who are being displaced, if you will, or who are being marginalized. And here's what I recognized several years ago about being marginalized, and it's a secret, don't tell anybody, okay? When you're marginalized, anybody remember the notebook paper that we had, you know, in school when it had loose leaf, you know, and you were supposed to write inside out the margins, and you weren't supposed to get outside. And so being marginalized, if you do it the right way, you are actually telling people you cannot do more than this. And so it is the margins that tell everybody else how to act. But we have to have a voice for that. And so when we talk about the Pregnancy Act, we talk about equal pay, we talk about the ERA, all of those things are coming from voices that used to be silent. And it's important that once we start talking, we don't stop. We don't stop. And representation matters. And I don't know if it would have been different if we didn't have a female majority, but I'll just tell you this, we got a whole lot more work done with a female majority across the aisles than we ever had done before that time. Because when we sit down, we don't have a whole lot of time to play. We don't.
Women make 82 cents on the dollar to men. That's the national data. It changes every week, but I found a median of 82 cents on the dollar to men. But we all know that it's less for women of color. Senator Spearman, how can we ensure that employers lift up women in pay? What is your call to action? And this is open to all panelists. So after Senator Spearman talks, anybody have a call to action for employers?
I would say that, number one, there's a reason that we did away, we made it illegal for people to prohibit employees from talking about their pay, because that's usually the only way that you know. The other thing that we did in terms of multiplying whatever the final judgment was, multiplying that by the highest interest rate. So when we talk about the gender pay gap, I would say this to everyone who is working in a job. Talk to folks who are at the same level you're at. I would say, you know, look at the salary pay scale and all of those things. And if your employer is not complying with the law, that means they're outside the law. And I would say, make sure that you take that complaint to Nevada Equal Rights Commission, because the only way we know that it's not happening is people have got to take it there. Can I say one more thing too? And there is some monetary value also that comes to the legislature, because we didn't want it to go to NERC, because we don't want people to think that, oh, they're just taking this case so that they can make money. But there are some monetary compensations that come to the legislature so that we can do more about equality. So wherever you are working for, whoever you are working for, make sure you know that the pay is correct. And the other thing that is important, because sometimes people will say, well, you know, he's getting paid more because he can lift 10 pounds. I know some women who can bench press 90. So that's not an excuse. And so you have to make sure that your voice is being heard. Make sure that where you are, and it's not maybe it is, make good trouble. Make good trouble.
That's right.
Because when you don't speak up and when you don't say things, people don't know. People don't know. So speak up. Speak up so she knows. And based upon the reports that she brings to the legislature, we know how well or not the laws that we are enacting, how well they work. Let me say one last thing. The first bill that I bought when I was elected to the legislature was Senate Bill 139. And that was the one that put transgender persons into the category of protection for hate crimes. And for transgender women who it's very difficult to find work, I would say to you, if you are listening, make sure you use your talents and don't be afraid to go out and apply for a job. And whoever you are and however you identify, the law will protect you. And we have a constitutional amendment that says you cannot be discriminated against.
Thank you, Senator Spearman. I want to kick it over to Poonam for a comment on that.
Yeah, just to offer a slightly different view, we match in sort of in a way, like Easter. So in the corporate, so the perspective that I can offer here is a Fortune 300 company at the time with 75,000 employees. I was the diversity diva. So senior VP, the portfolio was community, government relations, and corporate diversity. And so I wonder whether that would be equivalent to professional solitaire, right?
Right.
I'm not making a bed. I'm not serving a customer. I don't know how to run a restaurant. So how valuable can it actually be? But here's what, it took a while for us to get internally clear in articulating the business imperative, because it is not truly a business imperative in a publicly traded company to do good. Shareholders don't buy stock to do good. They buy stock to realize financial remuneration. So what became real clear is that it had to unapologetically advance the success, which is financial success of business. But man, when you look at emerging markets, I too don't like the word minority because it conveys something less than, right? In aggregate, the asset in this country is the emerging nature of some really vibrant markets. So when we then sort of could articulate the case based on the color that I would observe in our company was the one that mattered the most. And that was what Kermit the Frog sang about. The color was green, right?
Money, yes.
And I would sort of
Mhm.
also offer to employees, look, it may not be for you the most righteous or noble reason to get up in the morning, but what is undeniable is that is the one thing and the only thing that 75,000 of us have in common. So that's what we start with. We had many employees who could also embrace a social justice part of a mission around it. Good for them, but I didn't need them to. I needed them to understand the business imperative. Once you understand the business imperative, EEOC and NERC are sticks. They're not carrots, they're sticks. It's important in life to have sticks because you want to prevent bad stuff from happening. But man, oh man, as a company, we never spent any time talking about how to avoid the stick. It was about how do we do this better than the competition? So then that meant let's look through our HR policies and then we realized, you know what, we're not scoring the HRC. We want to be atop that list. So we were willing to do what it took to make the changes to earn the imprimatur of the HRC.
100%.
100%. Hello, can't get better. But what that did is unlocked what a market segment of our LGBTQ plus Americans who travel frequently, who have more discretionary income because they tend to have fewer children. They tend to be dual income earning and they're loyal as all get out because they've been used to being disrespected. So we could deliver that promise. We would get a really lucrative market segment that brought loyalty. I mean, I'm not an economist, but that seemed like a good deal. Right?
Yes.
Everyone
Mhm.
could get it. And so what it became was, let's look at being worthy of the market segment, right? So if I'm going to reach out and deliver a promise with sincerity and authenticity to our LGBTQ2 plus market, what do I need to do? I need to change up my HR policies. I need to recognize families that are created by same-sex couples. I need to acknowledge that family and paternity and maternity leave can be their leave, right? Those are the kinds of things you do. That's not stick. That's about maximizing the competitive advantage of the carrot. So the question I think you pose is, what can EEOC and NERC do? Part of what happens is I think some of the public rating agencies are now looking at community stuff, ESR, the corporate social responsibility, but they don't specifically get focused on spotlighting the good that organizations are doing. You know, part of it, if I'm going to be the stick agencies, is there an opportunity for us? I just asked the question, can you also then be this glorious spotlight of excellence in America?
We try putting them so hard. My
That's
team's
the
in the
kind of
audience
stuff.
and they are amazing. And one of the things that's so important too is even if, like what you just said, even if the social and civic aspects or attributes of just being a good person and treating people fairly and equitably doesn't ring your bell, but money does. There are true benefits to making sure that you open up diversity and that you include more people. And that there's also a penalty if you don't, that could
Exactly.
cost your bottom line, the
Exactly.
money. And then there's the court of public opinion. You don't want these charges to go public. So
Yep.
I like how you're resonating with employers, why it's good business to pay women fair, because not only is it correct and the right thing to do, but you also can now get a level of economic benefit by tapping into a group that's, we
Yeah.
say marginalized,
And so
that will be loyal to you. Is that
so
what you're saying?
There
Pam?
was absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you said it much better than I was going to say it. So thanks. There was a principle though that we used to convey to 75,000, sort of the bullseye, the essence, the value that we were pursuing underneath the business case, right? And it was the Ubuntu principle, Ubuntu tribe in Africa. And when two members of the tribe encounter one another, literally the exchange is sawabona, translates literally into I see you. The response is Sekona, equally literally translates into therefore I am here. And so the principle of Ubuntu was the one that we could explain to 75,000 employees, regardless of how much English they spoke or where they worked or what they knew. Everyone got that. So then it became, we got to pursue the spirit of Ubuntu, which means that if you don't see the fact that I'm a mother, you cannot bring my full contribution into existence. If you don't see the
That's
fact
so good.
that I am a same-sex raising a family, like have a unique family construct. If we don't see that, we don't bring that contribution of that employee into existence. So that then meant that we went into the HR policies and we developed an adoption benefit because I happen to have adopted kids. So I was like, I picked my baby up from Child Haven. I don't even get 2 weeks. Like that I didn't feel seen, right? So the spirit of Ubuntu was this overriding, really compelling way to sort of navigate, to gain a competitive edge. That was the key. Within 18 months of an enlightened leader, white guy, with him calling the shots and having our back, we could do the work. We could change the policies.
And
we could
how was
evaluate-
productivity, Poonam, when they allowed you to be who you are
That's the-
fully?
That's the point, is when I am seen and I can bring everything I got experientially into the workplace, innovation is up, solutions are up, guest service is up, speed of response is up, caring and capacity and commitment to the corporation are up. The United Way campaign giving is up, volunteerism is up. Happy employees are happy humans, right? But if I'm not a happy human, because I gotta curate and compartmentalize what I'm permitted to bring into a workplace or what I think I can bring into a workplace, I can't make my full contribution. And with turnover rates as high as 30% in the industry, I can do some simple math, and that's all I can do is simple math. Didn't take me long to say, over any span of time, the buildings are big. We spend tons to build the buildings, but over any span of time, the amount invested in people eclipses all other investments. And so as a publicly traded company with a fundamental fiduciary responsibility to realize return for shareholders, if I could increase the ROI on the single largest investment made over time, that would make us a solid company. What I liked about it, and I think why it worked for us, is that was just as compelling to our white men as it was everybody else. So it didn't become it's not a zero-sum game, right? It's not, I take from you, I get one more green, therefore one less white. It wasn't that sensibility. It was the spirit of Ubuntu to kick the competitor's butt.
That's
And
awesome.
every employee got that.
That's awesome. Will, do you want to add to that too?
No.
Okay. I just didn't want to leave the only guy on the panel out there.
No, I appreciate it. This is so cool. But I'm hearing language like allow and let. And I think that even in kind of this safe space, right? We're still letting this patriarchal hierarchy type thing infiltrate. And like you left to be a mom. That's a challenge for me. And I think we were talking about, I think the original topic was the pay gap. Some of that isn't just equal work for equal pay or equal pay for equal work. It's different jobs. Because when you have a kid, your hours are different. The way that you work is different. And your priorities are different. And so I love what you bring out about seeing one another. And I think as an ally, the one thing that I can be most impactful in doing is challenging all of us to be mindful of our consciousness and our communication, and to get rid of, they let me. No, I made the space. I'm here.
Yeah, great.
So I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to kick it over to Hanadi. Hanadi, as a proud leader and Muslim woman of faith, how would you describe the importance of culture in the workplace? And I want to preface this by saying I want to know more about you and your experience. One of the things I want our viewers to know, and EEOC was really proud of this settlement, was some time ago, EEOC was able to settle a major case against a large retailer in clothes that forced a young Muslim woman who applied without her hijab to then remove it when she appeared to work and showed up with her hijab on. It was a condition to her employment. Either you work here without the hijab or you take it off. Well, the woman said bye. She resigned her position constructively. She went to EEOC. EEOC settled the case in favor of this young woman, who then went on to another employer who was much more empathetic and allowed her to wear her religious covering. And so these are the protections that we're talking about here, how people can be seen in the workplace, how you fully bring yourself into the workplace. And so Hanadi, back to you as a Muslim woman of faith. Have you seen any of this? And you are the commissioner, you are on the NERC board. Have you seen anything here in Nevada resembling that? What are our challenges there? What about culture in the workplace? And tell us more about you.
Thank you, Kara, for giving the opportunity. That's a very sad incident that you just mentioned. Basically, these things happen because of sometimes I think I blame the media for that. The people coming from Pakistan to America, I have seen other countries. I tell you one thing, America is the best. the freedom we enjoy here, the liberty we enjoy over here, the right of speech, I have not seen anywhere else. That is a fact. But as Kara mentioned, these unfortunate events, they do happen. And they happen because of the lack of knowledge. Because the hijabi women, the woman who is wearing hijab, they are labeled as something who is very passionate about their religion, who thinks of other people not good. There's so many labels, but they are normal women. They're just normal women like me. They're just covering their head like most of the women, they do it in their religion, in their faith. So these are the things that happen because of lack of knowledge, and we all have a responsibility to educate the media that not to label them as extremities or not to label them as fanatic or as very religious. Having said that, Kara, I want to come back to I have a very interesting story to share with all of you.
Please do.
Thank you so much. So coming from Pakistan, going to different countries, seeing there, when I came to America, I was like, okay, I came over here. I had a very, my life was quite free. I've started working as a philanthropist in Pakistan back then when I was a student. I started an organization with the name of Safeguard Special Children and started working. That was my passion. From the very beginning of my life, I just wanted to do something for the community. I wanted to help the people. Somehow at that age, I found out that this is the purpose of our life. This is what gives us true happiness, seeing the smile at the face of the people. So I started working for them. I started an organization, and the school, the class is running. We have almost 70 special children in the school. And that is something that makes me proud, that this is what we have done. So, but as a woman, I tell you why women empowerment is so important. As a woman, as a lady, there was a time in my life came when my mom came to me and she said, Hanadi, it's time. You better get married. And I was like, what? I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, But the pressure came and I was like, okay. And somehow after a couple of years, I got married. And then my husband, he's a physician. He wanted to come to America to get his higher education. I moved here with him, and I had that feeling of, oh, I had to leave all that, all my philanthropic work, all this I have to leave. I was enjoying it. I was loving it. It was part of me. And I was very sad within myself. I was feeling literally down and sad. And I was like, because of my husband, because of my marriage, I have to move here to America. I was not valuing it too much. So when I came here, I came to know that this is the best decision of my life. America is a land of opportunity, is a land of infinity. I can achieve anything I want to. It's up to me. A woman should have the confidence. She should have the will. She should have the willingness, the perseverance, the hard work, the resilience to do what she wants. Having said that, still, that was a difficult time. My husband, he was taking his training, residency. He was busy. He was busy like crazy, 36 hours. I haven't seen him. And here I'm with 2 kids. And I was going crazy myself, taking care of the kids. I was like, okay, this is too much. I was thinking too much. This is too much. I'm not expecting this. But then I got courage in myself. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to give up. That I'm not going to be housewife. No, I did the community work. I did whatever in my reach possible not ignoring my kids, saying that's okay to my husband. Okay, you do your work. I don't want to bother you too much. But I kept on doing it. I kept on doing little by little. I did a lot of philanthropic work, that whatever is in my power at that time, whatever I could do. There was a time that I'm sharing all this because I want the women to realize how much power they have within themselves. There was a time when I was pregnant with one of my baby. It was the eighth one. And I was feeling the pain. And it was only because 8 months, I was like, I'm not going into labor. That's fine. That's fine. It's just a fake labor. It will pass away. But the pain started going more intense and more intense. So I told my husband to take me to a doctor. So we went to the emergency, we went to the doctor, and doctor checked me and she said that, oh, you are going into labor. And the pain was so intense. I told my husband, I'm gonna faint, I'm gonna pass out. And there was no time to get the epidural. And I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna pass out. Then I processed that thought and I was like, that's okay. There are people, there are women in the other part of the world, those who cannot even think about epidural. There are our grandmothers, our forefathers, they never had that facility. If they could do it, I could do it. And that gave me the strength. And few hours later, I had a beautiful, handsome baby boy in my arms. So
That's right.
this is the power that we women have. And we should think about ourselves as a very powerful, very confident, no matter whoever says, if there's somebody who is trying to degrade us, there's somebody who's gonna say, okay, what color you are, what race you are, you don't know good English. No, never think about it. Even if it happened to me, I think I don't even remember. Even if it ever happened to me, I don't remember because I don't care about it. What I care about, what I care about is that I have to take care of everyone. I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of this world. I have to take care of my kids. And I have to give good to this world. That is my mission. That is my vision. And with all this vision, we can achieve whatever we want. And we have to realize as a woman that if we achieve something, we are making it easy for the other women in the world to do the same thing. And we are making life easier and better for our next generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, I don't know how you ended on that, but all the questions are done for our panel. We have a ton online. You guys can't leave yet. Enjoy your government water on that table. Okay, it's not corporate, but enjoy that government water. We have questions. And so I'm gonna have just 2 minutes closing remarks, starting with Iris, who was our amazing welcome. Her story was so inspirational, but please give us closing remarks and then we'll go down the panel. And then Amy, I'll kick it over to you for questions.
Believe in yourself, no matter what people say, no matter what they want you to do. There is something that women have, and it's stubbornness. Use that on your advantage.
That's right.
Thank you.
I love it. And thank you for sitting next to me as part of this. To close, I would simply say that what we have before us is so much better than what's behind us. And I'm so optimistic for what is to come for the majority female legislature and the executive and the C-suite and all of the things that are represented today, because this represents progress. It represents change. And change does take time. And sometimes we forget how far we've come. But this panel, this powerhouse panel, shows how far we've come. I think of a glass of water. If you put a little food color in, the whole thing changes. And that's what you all are doing. You are adding so much to our world. simply by being who you are, by using your voices, by simply sharing your presence. And I'm honored, grateful, and humbled to have been able to sit here and learn and experience what you all have shared. So thank you.
Thank you, Will. Senator?
So what I'd like to say is, you know, all the things that happened to us and what I've heard from the panelists here, the pain, I would encourage anybody to turn that pain into passion. When I was born in Indianapolis, not in the South, in Indianapolis, I was born in an elevator. And the reason I was born in an elevator is because the hospital that my mother had to go to did not accept, quote, colored people coming through the front door. So my dad had to go all the way around to the freight elevator. And he said he got her in there and there was dirt everywhere, food, you know, medical supplies, that sort of thing. And he was like, he was afraid that she might fall into it. Well, she passed out and he was able to hold her head up above the floor. When the elevator opened up, the nurses were like, oh my God, the baby's here. And so when they told me that story, it resonated with the passion that I have for equality. Because where I was born, it shouldn't have happened because my mother was just as qualified to be taken through the front door as the white mothers that were already there in L&D. And so I would say, turn that pain into passion. A lot of people are not going to change and they're not going to change overnight. But one of the things that I do know is if you just stick with it, even if they don't change, you can elevate, you can be elevated to the place where whatever it is they say and or do doesn't matter. And I have a saying that I usually say in church, and that is there will always be haters, always haters. But if you do the right thing for the right reason, God will turn your haters into your elevators.
Mic drop. I mean.
See, that's why she has a doctorate degree and is a pastor and it's like 16 titles. Closing comments, gratitude. So to NERC, to EEOC, to UCARE for love, thought, all that you poured into making today happen. And to all of you in the room, the really good looking ones here, and then the awesome ones on camera, you all look really good too. Thank you. So let me begin by gratitude. You know, I'm in third act. And so my kids say to me, oh, it's starting to sound like an old person. I'm like, well, maybe because I am getting to be one. Everything is a long game. And I spent a good deal of my 20s lamenting the asteroid crooning to Earth. That was a moment. And now at this stage of life, there are no asteroids. Everything's a long game. And especially in this country, we live in a place that has a tortured relationship with its own past, with indigenous people, with our Black foundational contributors to the nation, right? We've never made sense of that. So yeah, it's a long one. This is a long one to get from there to full embracing, to equality, to equality. That's a long game. And so mindful of it's a long game. And within that long game, I am incredibly hopeful for all that Will just said. There are moments where I watch certain things on the news and I'm like, are we going backwards? No, there's certain really unconscionable truths that are true in this moment of the journey, and yet it is a journey of progress. So every time any one of us bring another into existence, offer the comment or the note of support, or give the fist bump or the high five in celebrating and acknowledging each other, anytime we are courageous enough to express vulnerability, thereby granting permission to be vulnerable and therefore differently connected, human to human, we're contributing. We're contributing, and I don't know how, and I can't prove it. I just absolutely believe it, which keeps me really, really hopeful. So this is the first time you've done this. Wow. Those are the kinds of moments in a journey that ultimately, you know, movements happen and the inflection points are when the inflection points are. I got no control. And so gratitude is what I feel, and hope, gratitude and hope.
Thank you, Poonam. Hanani, Nadeem, and then we'll go to the questions. Last remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Karas. I really want to say thank you for giving the opportunity to all of us to say about this and regarding the women empowerment, the Women Day. I really want to say every woman out there to be confident. to believe in yourself and think about yourself. You are the most beautiful girl, lady, woman in the world. Just have that faith. Just feel confident, and then you can do it. That's what I think. That is the most important thing, that the mind game, your mind has to be very strong, and you need to believe in your own powers, have faith in yourself. Thank you so much, everyone.
And last but not least, Ms. Latoya Holman.
Very quickly, just remember, I learned this, I went through a fellowship, the Jameson Fellowship. And one of the lessons I learned during that journey was just because I do things a little bit differently than other people, I may lead differently, I may speak differently, my hair may look a little different. My uniqueness is my strength. And there's nothing wrong with doing a job a little bit differently or building a process a little bit differently, because it is in that uniqueness that strengthens all of us. And so just let that freak flag fly if you got to do it. But honestly, approach it in the uniqueness that you were born with and with the gifts that you've developed.
Thank you. And that's our panel. Thank you. So Amy, I know I've gotten texts that the chats have a ton of questions. I'm going to kick it over to Amy Nigro of the EEOC, who is hosting the virtual component of this. So Amy, you there?
Yes, Kara, thank you.
All right, take it away with the question.
Sure. We keep hearing speak up. We hear, make good trouble, which by the way, I love. But a common discussion that we're seeing in the chat is this fear of retaliation. And, coming from NERC and from EEOC, that's something we hear about all of the time. And we all know we can't make change unless we actually speak up, right? We can't help them if we don't know about it. But this fear of losing their livelihoods if they speak up, the questions here are wondering if any of you have experienced that retaliation after speaking up, and how did you deal with it? And this is for any of the panelists that would like to take that.
Well, it wasn't necessarily losing a job. Well, it was. I reported to a new duty station in Kentucky. And one of the people I was going to report to had a meeting with him. And when I walked in, saluted. And his first question to me was, how did a Black gal like you make it to major? And I said, I worked very hard for it, sir. And he said, well, words to the effect, relish that because you won't go any higher. And I was one of those ones that spoke up all the time. And fortunately, I was able to get another promotion, but he wrote something in my OER that kept me from getting to 06. And I tell people all the time, if I'd been a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes, I would have retired as a 2-star general. And so speaking up may cost you something, but I look at all of the women who came behind me, and so many of them have made generals, brigadier, they've made 4-star. And so what I didn't accomplish, I believe that as a pioneer, when you speak up as a pioneer, you are the one that is paving the way. We may not know where we're going, but we are not lost. Speak up.
And if you can't speak up for yourself, just call us. We'll come to make some noise with you.
I'll also say, as a person in the corporate space, as the diversity diva of a large company, when employees had something to share, often they would come to me because I was like safer than the HR folks, because I wasn't HR. I was, I didn't punish, I couldn't, right? So I somehow felt safer to them. So I heard from a lot of it. And here's what I saw is that there's a big difference between a person who shows up with the desire to make things better and a person who shows up with a desire to inflict some pain. And in minutes or seconds into a conversation, I sort of had a sense or felt a sense of, is this about solution? Or is it about perpetuating a problem? And so at a certain point, that was hard, because if there was something that felt like there was no place to try to offer solution, in most cases, we could migrate to employees want what is best they're offering because they're purely intention. They want stuff to be better. So they bring a point of view that is really valuable. And it can get a bit awkward if someone is so angry that it felt like it was a tough conversation to have. And in that case, all I could say to them was, look, there is process available to you, due process that you're entitled to. And if you want to try to have a conversation before you go to EEOC or before you go to NERC, I'd love it because we don't like NERC and EEOC stuff.
That's fair.
Yeah, but it didn't always work, right? Depending on the sort of the level of pissed offness,
Mhm.
which is probably not okay to say on a panel, but
You can
it's a
say
bit
whatever
late
you wanna
now,
say.
so I'll
Nice little
apologize.
freak flag, so.
One of the things too that I think is important for the question online is that somehow there's this misconception and assumption that if we are fully who we are, that everybody's going to be okay with it. So I want everybody to know that retaliation is a natural part of standing in who you are. People, not everybody's going to like you. But what did Hanadi say? That you don't need to care. Your job is to make impact in this world and be yourself and create boundaries and expectations, like Poonam said, that this is what I'm contributing to the workplace, but thank you for this, but these are my expectations. And so one of the things that with retaliation is that it can be uncomfortable. We're not going to sugarcoat it, but when you do file a complaint with either the NERC, the Nevada Equal Rights Commission, or EEOC, you are now what's considered engaged in a protected activity. You are protected. So if you are facing retaliation for a good faith allegation of discrimination, if it continues to happen, or you're let go, or you're fired, or you're put in the basement to do the work, or you're treated differently, or there's a term or condition that now you have to suffer because you spoke up, whether it's sexual harassment or not having equal pay, you need to document it. LaToya, did you want to add to that at all?
Sure. I think practically one of the things that I'm sensing from the question is fear.
Yes.
It's scary and it's going to be scary. Like, I think we just need to say the thing, right? Which is sometimes retaliation happens. It shouldn't, it does sometimes. And I think we should think as smart humans and be prepared. Mentally be prepared for that. Reach out to other people that have been going through the same thing. It's likely there have been others, whether it's someone in your immediate circumstances or just amongst this beautiful world community that we have, and get the support that you need to ride you through until you can get the solution that you feel is fair for you, or you're in an environment where you can continue to function in a way that's comfortable.
And I think that's also important is that when the state or the federal government, they are investigating your complaint, they are neutral and they aren't supposed to put themselves into the shoes of your suffering. And so I want to say that as an agency head, I know Amy can probably also nod back there. We are doing our investigation thoroughly, but our investigators are working very hard and are highly trained to find out whether or not you're being retaliated against or you're facing discrimination. Always at the center, though, is conciliation and mediation to resolve it in-house, which is the goal. And so, be kind to our government employees who are actually sacrificing themselves to find the truth. Any other questions, Amy? I think we have a ton more.
Yeah, we have a couple more.
Okay.
In keeping with the reason we're all here together to commemorate Women's History Month, there is a question about women in the workplace and mentoring. The question is, how important was it for you to have a mentor as a woman in the workplace? And do you feel that every woman should have a mentor?
I'm happy to take that one.
Go for it, Poonam.
Yeah, I've not had one mentor. I've had like dozens, right? And here's why is someone had said, one of my mentors early on said, one way to select mentors is to just sort of examine what it is that is representing challenge to you at that moment in your life. Look around and say, who seems to be dealing with that challenge in a way that I want to be dealing with that challenge, and then sit them down for a cup of coffee, because even I could afford a cup of coffee, and say, what are you doing? Just tell me. So I have done it with single mothers. I have done it with senior level gaming executives. I have done it with women of color. I have done it with, you name it. I've done it when I've been not sure about what next chapter might want to be. as I've been contemplating making change. I literally just look at the world and say, who has what I want? Who is doing and seems to have done is on the other side, because experience is the thing that I'm looking for. I get tons of opinions from my family and friends, and there's
Right.
based on nothing. I'm like, which orifice did you just pull that idea out of? That's an opinion. I want experience, right? And so that has been incredibly helpful. And I've never once, I mean, I've been kind of, it blows my mind that never once when I've cold called someone and said, I don't want to sound creepy, and yet I would love an hour of your time, and here's why.
Poonam, didn't I do that with you 3 years ago?
Kara Jenkins did that with
I
me.
called you.
She did. And so, and I love that. So
Mhm.
over the years, I've had many mentors. I've got a couple of Yoda people in my life who are my 411, 911 over time. But I don't know that for specific things, it's much more valuable. It's been incredibly valuable to have that person in that moment, because they've done and lived through what I'm going through right now.
Anybody else want to answer that question? Edith?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I was going through a period in my career where I just couldn't figure it out. I was miserable. I felt like I wasn't doing a good job. I wasn't achieving, I was achieving the goals, but I was being told I wasn't. I was just being gaslit everywhere I went is ultimately what happened. I couldn't see myself through it. I couldn't see what the heck was going on. And guess who did? A woman. And so exactly what you said, which is I sat down with her and I said, what are you seeing? What am I missing? And she was like, it's this. And I know because I've been through it. And I simply said, what's my way out? Or can you point me in the right direction? And she did. I think having female mentors is incredibly important because we have obviously some similarities. One of the common themes is worthiness, understanding and being able to articulate our value. And so for those women who have figured that out and how to do that, we need to soak that up. So I think it's incredibly important.
Edith, you had a comment on mentors?
Yeah, I think they have said it all, but I have had many mentors the last 10 years of my experience here in the country. Because just like you guys say at some point, sometimes we're our own enemy. And we need that other person to let us know we are not that bad than we think we are. And sometimes, and it's better if not somebody from your family, because they tend to be a little bit biased, right? But you need somebody that tells you exactly what it is that you are not doing, that you should be doing, or to see your fully potential. I 100% believe in mentorship. I have been able also, and when you get that, because to me, as a faithful person, I think it's just Heavenly Father uses us as those angels for other people here on earth. So it's a matter of also be grateful. And when somebody reach out to you with any question based on the experience that you have had, feel free to share it too. That is normally my way to give back as well.
I think mentorship is so important because on days, sometimes we don't want to get out of bed. It's that person calling you saying, get your butt out of bed. And half the time it's just showing up. 90% of it is showing up. I'll never forget, I saw a panel where Michelle Obama was talking about her experience in the corporate world and also being a female attorney and just saying that this is what it is in this room. I thought that it was going to be so much more intense. I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, I was smarter than all of them. And, it's not knocking anybody else, but what you don't know is that everybody's winging it. And so the biggest part in the challenge is just showing up. You have most of everybody beat if you show up. And so mentorship helps you. Outcome is just give it to God, give it to the stars, give it to whatever you believe in, but you just show up. That's you doing your part and that's enough. Will, did you want to add to anything about mentorship?
So mentorship is critical. I've been really blessed to have had excellent female leaders. My first real boss was a female leader who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. My current boss is a female leader. And I would like to add to the mentorship piece a thought about also finding a coach. Because mentorship is like, hey, what did you do? But coaching brings out that innate wisdom that you already have, and it asks you the questions of yourself. Well, why might it be that way? So finding an excellent coach is so important. And on this same kind of train, but maybe a different caboose here, privilege. Recognizing each of us has a measure of privilege that we can use to benefit others. And so recognizing, as you mentioned, we're all in that space winging it. Nobody really has it figured out. And sometimes people think you have it figured out. And so use that to your advantage to get someone else into the space, to get someone else into the room, to be able to open and hold open doors for others. I think it is so important to do what you've done, Senator, which is pave the way. And I think it's equally as important to ensure that once the way is paved, you pass the torch so someone else can continue that journey and take it the next mile so that they can pass it and go a mile further so that the world that I think all of us here envision can actually happen.
Any more questions, Amy?
I had one more to the.
Oh, yeah, no, please.
mentorship. So mentorship as a verb has worked really well for me. Mentorship as a noun scares me a little bit. So when someone calls and says, will you be my mentor? I'm like, I'm busy. I got kids. I'm like, the dogs are behind on immunization records. There's something broken at my house. I don't need another responsibility as a noun, right? But so many times I've engaged in the verb, I've benefited from the verb, but those ladies, those women that I reached out to when I was a new mother at corporate board tables to say, how do you deal with juggling a soccer practice in a board meeting? I have never called them again because I only had kids at one time. Like I didn't need them to be my forever anything. I needed them to be my verb, not my noun. And so for all of us, we in the course of a day, if mentorship is a verb, we can engage in said activity anytime. We can also be the beneficiary of said activity anytime without the burden of another job or another responsibility.
That's perfect. Amy?
Yes, we have one last question. What advice would you give to women, specifically women of color, who constantly have to validate their worth, experience, and education to gain access to seats at tables? And when will the time come when that access is seen as welcome as opposed to a hindrance?
I think everybody on the panel is a woman of color, so I'm going to have everybody answer that question and then we'll give conclusionary remarks.
You want to go this way and then, okay, all right. It's not a good idea to do that. To question a woman of color's worth. But it happens. And so I'll just tell a brief story. So that was my circumstance. I am now working for a great organization that does not do that, that fully empowers me. And when you get to a space where you can fully actualize, the results are unbelievable. I was given some space to be creative and I was like, you know what? I always wanted to do this one thing and this person didn't think I had the value or the skill set to pull it off. So I'm going to do it here. And I launched the Black Girl Magic Juneteenth Jubilee Scholarship. And what I did was I reached out to other women of color, particularly Black women, to say, will you stand with me while I tell this story? And 33 of them immediately responded. And we have one of the largest host committees of any kind of initiative or event in the state. And all we're doing is raising money for young Black girls who we know will have the same experience to empower them to see themselves through that. Questioning the value of women of color is not advised.
So for this question, I want to say the first and the foremost, the most important thing is you work hard, you work passionately. No matter from where you are, how much experience you have. If you are willing to learn, if you are willing to work hard, you will pave your way forward. You will definitely be accepted and respected. The most important thing is, and women, they are more intelligent. I mean, this is I'm saying it honestly. I have seen it. It's my experience, life experience. They are more intelligent than men. They are multitasking. You tell a man to find something from the kitchen. He's gonna take 2-3 hours just to find a bottle of salt or milk or something. You tell a woman to bring 3 things, she will do it in 5 minutes. Isn't that right? Yes. They're very, my point is they're very intelligent, sympathetic, empathy is something, a very important trait in a woman. She can relate to someone else. She can be sympathetic and she knows exactly what needs to be done. So use all those instincts, work honestly, work hard. And this is my own life experience in America, in everywhere in the world. When you try your best, when you do something, you're passionate about something, you will achieve it. Don't be scared of it. That's okay. There's always hindrance in your life. There always will be people who are going to stop you for a moment. But that only can happen for a moment, just for a friction of second. But your passion, your hard work, your honesty will always take you where you want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanani.
Yeah, I would say yes and yes.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
ditto and ditto. I spent a lot of time early in my career seeking the affirmation and needing the recognition of my worth. There was a moment when I finally simply chose to claim it in a conversation in a mirror in the morning. So the first place that recognition of value and worth, especially for women of color, the first place I'm going to say make that happen is when that gorgeous face is looking at you in the mirror in the morning. Second is my experience has been exactly what you described. Is the harder I work, the more opportunities I get. The harder I work, the more good stuff happens, right? So work like crazy. And third, at a certain point, the intelligent decision, the wise decision, if nothing is changing, is not to repeat Einstein's definition of insanity. It is to quit that boss and go somewhere where there's a better boss, right? Because that is how the market should speak. Those that aren't, that just refuse to play or refuse to get contemporary or still are using, iPhone 4s, more power to them. But I don't need to slow my life down to pace. Right? And so claim first, recognize first that worth and value in yourself unapologetically, which I don't think is as easy as it just sounds, right? Second, work like hell and have faith that when you do good things happen. And if over a period of time that is not the case, you quit that boss and you go find someone. Because one of the traps that we can get into is to look for the affirmation or the recognition from the one place we will never get it.
Yes.
And we want not to be there, right? So we can help each other by saying, you've given it every shot for 6 months. It is time to quit your boss.
Love that. It's like planting a seed in unfertile ground and hoping that it grows, the plant grows, but it's just not. Just pick your seed somewhere else to fertile ground. Yeah. Senator?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I'll piggyback on what Poonam said. One of my brothers, younger brother, and he's passed on now, but he used to say, Patricia, before you walk out the door, look in the mirror. And if you can't whistle at yourself, you ain't ready to go. And that was his way of saying, make sure you're all together. And a lot of times you don't feel it, but if you can dress like it and you can tell yourself, you can keep going forward. Because the truth of the matter is, most of the people who don't like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, most of the people who don't like that is because it threatens them, because they never had to work hard to get to where they are. And they know the people that are coming behind them had to work super hard. So you just got to tell yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And if you get to the place where you've repeated it and it's not happening, I agree, then divorce the boss.
well, as the male on the panel, I don't want to mansplain, so I'm super cautious. And I think these boxes that we kind of put ourselves into, and in my experience, even though, you know, you come in and there are certain expectations because you're a guy, you can do this. I'm a guy that can't do a whole lot of guy stuff. Like, don't ask me to put things together. It's not gonna happen. I can't change a flat tire. Like, I'm not that guy. And I, my value isn't based on that, which is why I think that we're on the verge of a huge paradigm shift where existence is worthy of sustenance. So I see things are changing and the future is bright. And I mentioned all that earlier. And we have to believe it ourselves. And we can't wait for anyone else to validate who and what we are. We are worthy simply because we are here. And so allow folks to have their boxes. They're looking at you through their experience. They may never think you're capable of what you're capable of, and that's fine. Got a beautiful singer on the end there. I've never heard you. I want to hear you.
I'll send you
There's a piano right there.
Yeah.
The whole time we've been sitting here.
And I have a feeling I'm going to like it. But there are some singers I don't like, but they're phenomenal. You get me?
Yeah.
And that's the same. So it's not necessarily you. It's not always you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you didn't do a good job. Sometimes it's just, as has already been said, you're in the wrong space. So yeah, I'm done with the mansplaining.
And our final comment from Edith.
But this has been amazing. I still cannot believe that I am with them sharing this panel here today. So thank you so much. I guess define who you are. Once you know who really you are, it doesn't matter what everybody else can think of you, say about you. Move quick. Do not stay where you feel that they are not, they don't value your worth. Move quick and celebrate your victories. Even if those victories one day is just get up of bed. I have had many of those days. That is an accomplishment. And so be present, enjoy the changes, embrace the changes. And again, don't let anybody to define you. Once you understand your uniqueness, that's all you need.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Nevada Women's Forum.